Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight.
Government says it will cost $39 million to repair the entire Grand Lucayan Resort.
The Bahamas Public Service Union says the minister responsible for the post office is out of touch. We have the details of that straight ahead.
Our News is brought to you by Alive.
Welcome to Our News, and thanks for joining us. I'm Kyle Joaquin. Minister of Finance Peter Turnquest has revealed that repairs at the Grand Lucayan would cost approximately $39 million. This as a resolution to borrow $35 million to complete the sale of the $65 million hotel was passed in the House of Assembly last night. Jared Higgs reports.
An investment of some $8 million will be necessary to bring the Breakers Key section of the resort back to its former fully operational state. The Reef Memories will require $15 million, and the Lighthouse Point, the convention center, the offices and the back of the house operations, approximately another $15 million.
As a day's worth of debate on government's hotel purchase wrapped up, Deputy Prime Minister Peter Turnquest revealed long-awaited details about just how much it would cost to recondition the 3 properties severely damaged by Hurricane Matthew at the Grand Lucayan Resort. While Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis previously stated that they were eyeing the Memories Resort for repair, Turnquest, while offering a timeline for repairs, says that isn't likely.
Breakers Key, which is currently closed, could be operational within a 6-month period. Lighthouse Point, which is open, has a few repairs that will take up to 8 months. It will remain open while undergoing the renovations to the roof and other refurbishments should the SPV proceed in that direction. The Reef Memories would also take up to 8 months to complete the renovations required, although the government is not minded at this point.
PLP Deputy Leader Chester Cooper suggested that government's $65 million hotel purchase may be closer to $100 million. That figure factors in interest payments, stamp taxes, funds owed to the resort staff, and the cost of replacing supplies such as soap, cleaning material, linen, and stationery. Repairs to the hotel would undoubtedly push that figure even higher. And while acknowledging that they would have to come back to Parliament for approval to borrow more funds, Turnquest says they hope to have the hotel off their hands within a year.
The board of the special purpose vehicle has clear instructions to make provisions only for those net operating costs that are absolutely necessary to ensure the resort remains open and successful while a buyer is identified. The government is, and I repeat, the government does not intend to fall into the business of managing this or any other hotel for any period of time. The SPV is only shepherd to this process and will have as its focus the packaging and sale of the property to a well-funded visionary investor as soon as possible, but certainly within the year.
According to Turnquest, the purchase included 405 acres of land, 7 buildings, 1,271 rooms, 19 restaurants, 15 meeting rooms, 3 pools, an 18-hole golf course, a casino, a spa, and a fitness center. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jared Higgs.
Well, in light of the finance minister's revelation that it would cost government $8 million to renovate Breakers Key Hotel, which was damaged during Hurricane Matthew, Tourism Minister Dionisio de Aguilar says it saddens him that the Grand Lucayan's former owner, Hutchison Whampoa, didn't see it fit to carry out renovations. Even after Hutchison Whampoa collected tens of millions of dollars in insurance money after the resort was damaged, de Aguilar says it seemed to wash its hands of the troubled resort.
We were happy and dismayed. We were happy that it wouldn't cost that much to fix. We were dismayed that, you know, for $5 million, Hutchison Whampoa didn't see fit to get it up and running.
De Aguilar, who was a guest on the RTV show On the Record with host Jerome Sawyer last night, says he thinks the resort became a nuisance to Hutchison Whampoa.
They made profits, I'm advised, in excess of $7 billion last year. So this hotel to them is just a nuisance, really. It's a rounding error on some report. And they just didn't feel it to open it. And they took their insurance money. They took the money that they're getting from the Bahamas government and have washed their hands of it. If you speak to them, they lost millions upon millions in this hotel, and they're quite happy to be done with it. Clearly, we could not allow that to happen. We just simply could not allow that hotel to close. Past evidence, I'm sure you're aware, and we've talked about it on many occasions. If you allow that hotel to close, it'll become increasingly difficult to reopen.
Meanwhile, Pine Ridge MP Frederick McAlpine is echoing concerns by PLP Deputy Leader Chester Cooper, who suggested that the $65 million purchase price of the Grand Lucayan Resort doesn't reflect the full cost to the public purse.
Is the government able to give Joe Public the total purchase price for the property, inclusive of any liabilities that we may also assume? Can the government also tell the public and us backbenchers, was the purchase of the hotel property subject to stamp duties? And I recognize that since getting the agreement that we are subject to that, $3.5 million. What about VAT? And if so, what was the amount paid and by whom?
McAlpine also slammed government for purchasing the hotel from Hutchison Whampoa Limited and borrowing the money from that same entity to do so.
So it appears we're buying from them, borrowing from them by way of mortgage simultaneously at a 4% interest rate. Without question, Hutchison is smiling on the way to the bank, not to mention that they got a hefty insurance check and did no renovation. Mama would say, what a time, what a time, what a time.
Well, despite government's decision not to implement a 5% stamp tax on gaming house patrons or enforce a controversial sliding scale tax ahead of a court hearing next month, Tourism Minister Dionisio de Aguilar advised gaming operators to put the money allocated for those taxes aside, just in case they have to pay up later. De Aguilar, who is the minister responsible for gaming, suggested that money may be collected retroactively to ensure the minister's administration stays on budget.
It will work its way through the courts, and obviously the government will aggressively pursue the retroactivity of these taxes to collect them so we can keep on budget. We feel that it's an industry that makes substantial profits and needs to pay its fair share, and that's the basis upon which we introduced the taxation structure that we did.
The government has projected that it will collect $70 million in gaming taxes this fiscal year. Attorneys for gaming operators filed a suit in the Supreme Court last month seeking leave for a judicial review and an injunction against those taxes. Web shop bosses have called the proposed taxes discriminatory. However, de Aguilar asserted that taxes doesn't have to be fair.
The government projected to receive $75 million from the gaming industry in this fiscal period. I don't know, I'm not a lawyer, and so this is now moved into the hands of the Attorney General's office, and the legal wrangling continues. I'm not sure that if the government were to prevail, whether they could go back and retroactively collect those taxes. My advice to them is put that money aside, because even if you go to court, the government believes, and I've said this in the press, that it has an inalienable right to tax. And taxes can be as discriminatory as you want. It says it's embedded right in the Constitution. I could charge Jerome one tax and Dionisio another tax. It doesn't have to be fair.
The General Post Office will no longer be relocated to Gladstone Road, according to Minister Renwood Walls. With many challenges still lingering at the General Post Office, this news isn't sitting well with BPSU President Kingsley Ferguson. Jillian Gray reports.
The health hazardous working conditions at the General Post Office has had virtually no change, leading Bahamas Public Service Union President Kingsley Ferguson to say that the minister responsible is out of touch if he wants those persons to stay in those working conditions.
The government had identified a building that we were going to renovate to move the General Post Office from downtown to that site. But what ended up happening is that what we realized with that building, that is a government building now, is that the amount of renovations that is needed is beyond what we had budgeted for. We anticipated it was going to be about $4 million to renovate the building. Obviously, it is a whole lot more than that.
With the old Phil's building on Gladstone Road off the table as the future site, the government recommended a new shift system for workers. Ferguson said he was not informed that Phil's was no longer an option and added that he is disappointed that the union does not have a seat at the table when making decisions.
The minister is, to a great extent, out of touch with what is going on with the post office. I don't know who would have advised him. If he was properly advised, he too would be of the opinion that the staffers there need to be removed from the building. By virtue of the fact that he is suggesting that there needs to be a shift system doesn't change the fact that the environment is unsafe and unhealthy.
The BPSU president said he was taken by surprise that Minister Renward Wells gave a press update but has not yet met with the union. Mold is still a challenge at the post office, and the promised brand new AC units were not delivered. Instead, he said units were repaired, but they continued to malfunction, leaving water gushing into the workspace. Ferguson said the post office is just one step away from a very serious disaster.
We are hopeful that while persons remain in the building, that the concrete slabs don't fall on any of them.
Ferguson claims workers have had adverse skin conditions and respiratory challenges due to the poor working conditions. He says the union is attempting to have those incidents claimed as industrial accidents, as he says it's poor that workers must dig into their own pockets to deal with health challenges arising from the work environment.
The union is calling on the government not just to rectify the concerns, but to find a new building to put the staffers in the post office in. I think we've been patient enough.
In April, the then Minister Frankie Campbell revealed that the government would implode the building on East Hill Street and build a new, modern facility. Ferguson said as the building has already been condemned, it's concerning that the government would still have employees working in the facility.
There is the building over on the highway where the old Solomon's was. There is the Pepsi-Cola building on Prince Charles Drive. All of these are alternative places that the government can give consideration to.
Reporting for our News, I'm Jillian Gray.
Still to come on our news, an IDB report highlights skills deficits among the Bahamian labor force, plus how one primary school is promoting childhood cancer awareness. Stay tuned.